Hello and welcome to another episode of Inside the Ropes with Coach Mario. Coach Mario, owner and head coach of Warriors Pride Boxing Academy here in Miami, Florida. Happy Friday, guys. Feliz Viernes Social para todo el mundo. Happy Social Friday for everybody around the world. In Puerto Rico, we celebrate too much. We're always partying. We're always having a good time. It's the island mentality. To enjoy life and to have a good time, and that's why on Fridays they call it Social Fridays. Everybody gets together, has drinks after they go to work. It's a cultural thing. They also have pre-Social Friday, which is done on a Thursday. So hey man, it's always party time in Puerto Rico. If you have never visited the island, I suggest you go and experience it on your own. If you have met other Puerto Rican people around the world, I know a lot of people from all over the world listen to this program. Share your thoughts about that experience with people from Puerto Rico. And I can tell you they are very humble. They're great people. They are people that actually embrace all their cultures. They're very giving, and but they do enjoy life, and they party like there's no tomorrow. There's always a holiday in Puerto Rico. That they got the federal holidays from the United States, and they got the local holidays in Puerto Rico. So it's always a party. So Feliz Viernes Social to everybody. That's the mentality, and that's the reason why I just wish you guys have an excellent weekend. But today we're gonna delve into the world of combat sports, breaking down the intricacies of boxing and beyond. Today we're tackling a hot topic, MMA versus boxing. We're going to explore why boxing is considered far more dangerous than MMA, the reason behind the shift of casual fans to MMA, and the confusion and corruption in boxing compared to the competitive nature of the UFC. All right? I gotta tell you something, guys. I had a little game the other day, a trivia game at the gym, and the ignorance of the sport of boxing is huge in today's society, in the youth, and a lot of people that are very young. However, the knowledge of MMA, UFC is more. And the reason why I'm making this program is because one of the kids, when I was, he's not a kid, he's a teenager, and they're 17, 16 years old. We're asking all these questions about boxing so that we can somehow plant that seed of learning, because Warriors Pride Boxing Academy is a boxing academy. We not only teach the martial art of boxing, the technical part, we not only run the drills and teach the guys how to box and defend themselves, but we also teach the history of boxing, all right, which is very important, and which is lacking in a lot of boxing schools. They don't teach a history. We do. We teach as a boxing school. So in a school setting, you have to teach the background of the sport, or the background, what you're teaching, how it came about. And we have a trivia game now and then, and where we pair our students, and we ask questions about not only the history of boxing, but about technical parts of boxing. How many judges, for example, how many judges in a fight, how many rounds in a championship fight, how many minutes in a round, stuff like that, so they can learn about the sport and plant that seed, like I said before, in order for them to get started in the sport of boxing. Some of these kids just come to us because they have interest in learning the martial art of boxing, because they saw either Jake Paul or some of these other social media kings, boxing champions, and they want to emulate them. All right. So the reason why I'm doing this show, this specific episode, is because one of the kids says, "Hey, why don't you ask MMA questions?" I'm like, "What? This is boxing, guys. This is not MMA." All right. So this is the reason why I'm making this show. All right. This episode specifically talking about boxing versus MMA, or MMA versus boxing. So let's get started. First, let's address the elephant in the room. Why is MMA often seen as more dangerous than boxing? All right, you see the MMA fights. A lot of people say it's more dangerous, and look at all the blood, and look at all the, they punch with they strike with their legs, with their elbows, all this other stuff. They're bloody battles. However, not one single UFC fighter has died in the octagon since its creation, while tragically, many boxers die every year. How can this be? So boxing and MMA are both combat sports, but they differ greatly in how they are fought and regulated. In boxing, the primary target is the head, leading to repeated blows to the skull. Over time, this accumulation of punches can cause severe brain damage, known as chronic encephalopathy. All right? That's a really hard word to pronounce. Encephalopathy. CTE. MMA fighters use a variety of techniques, including grappling, submissions, and strikes to different parts of the body, which distributes the impact and reduces the frequency of head trauma. Additionally, the gloves in boxing, while larger, often lead to more sustained damage over the course of a fight. What? And this is a point, and I've actually spoken to a lot of people about this when they say, oh, the gloves of MMA fighters are smaller, so they hit harder. And that's a falsehood, guys. And I'll explain it in a minute. In contrast, MMA gloves are smaller, and while they can cause cuts and immediate damage, they don't allow for the same volume of repeated blows to the head. Also, MMA fights can end in various ways: submissions, grappling, and ground and pound, providing more opportunities to avoid prolonged head trauma. Another factor is the difference in referee intervention. MMA referees are quicker to stop fights when a fighter is in defenseless position or taking significant damage, whereas boxing referees often give a standing 8 count, allowing fighters to continue even after being knocked down. This can lead to more prolonged exposure to harm in boxing. All right. So one of the things I was explaining to some of my students regarding, the falsehood or the perception that MMA is more dangerous and the punches are harder because they're smaller gloves. And I tell them, listen, hit that bag right there with all your power with a 16-ounce glove or a 12-ounce glove, and hit it with a little MMA glove, and you'll see the effect that punch has in your hands. First of all, you can hit a lot harder with when you have cushion in your hands, when your hands are protected. Remember, the boxers also use wrapping under their gloves. They use hand wraps, all right? They use gauze, they use tape. They tape their hands in a way that it protects their knuckles and the bones in the hand of the fighters, all right? And therefore, when you punch with more confidence. There is a lot of times where boxers do hurt their hands. Imagine with all that padding and the gloves and everything, they do hurt their hands and they break their hands. So imagine somebody hitting somebody for a fight. Just imagine a fight, with smaller gloves. There's more risk to injury to the hands. Therefore, you can punch harder when you have, cushion gloves. You can hit with more confidence. And that is the reason why a lot of people do not understand this. And I tell them, hit that bag, actually hit it, bare knuckle as hard as you can, or use gloves. What do you think you're gonna hit it harder with? With the gloves, because you got the protection in your hands. When you hit the bag, a heavy bag, just bare knuckle, with no protection, you can, hurt your hand. You can, break a bone or something like that. And that's the reason why I can tell you that it's more dangerous and it's harder on the body to be hit with a boxing glove than with an MMA glove. All right? So just take a note of that. So let's continue. So now, why are casual fans gravitating more towards MMA and the UFC? One major reason is the accessibility and excitement that MMA offers. The UFC, as a single organization, has done an excellent job of marketing and promoting its fighters and events. Fans know where to go for top-tier MMA action, and the UFC consistently delivers competitive, high-stake matchups. In boxing, however, the landscape is much more fragmented. Multiple organizations, each with their own champions, create confusion among fans. The WBC, WBA, IBF, and WBO all have their own title holders and subtitle holders. You know, the silver champ, the diamond champ, the super champ. What the hell is that? Which can be perplexing for casual viewers. This multitude of belts dilutes the prestige of being a world champion and makes it difficult for fans to follow the sport. And I was asking that question the other day in that trivia game that we play at the gym. How many divisions are there in boxing? There's 17 divisions, guys. 17 divisions. So multiply 17. And if you have a champion in each organization, 17 times 4. 68 champions. 68 world champions. Who can keep track of that? I mean, I'm just saying, if there would be a champion for every organization in every division, which is sometimes they're unified, sometimes a vacant belt and stuff like that. So it makes it so confusing. I tell you, when I was a young man in the Marines, I could name every single champion in every division. All right, there were only two major boxing organizations, and usually you had a unified champion in each division. So I knew every single champion. I could name every single champion for every weight class. Now, I can't do it, guys. Can't keep tabs on it, and it changes so much, you know, and there's so much corruption. So let's continue. Moreover, the UFC often pits the best against the best, ensuring that top fighters face each other regularly. This contrasts sharply with boxing, where politics, promotional disputes, and tune-up fights can prevent the most anticipated bouts from happening. Fans want to see the best fighter clash, and the UFC delivers that consistently. Boxing's reputation has also suffered due to instances of corruption and controversial decisions. Promoters often have significant control over which fights get made, leading to mismatches and protecting certain fighters to preserve their marketability. This has resulted in boxing fans becoming disillusioned with the sport's integrity. And I am totally disillusioned about the sport of boxing. I still watch it, I still love it. But when fighters like Canelo Alvarez can hold their belts indefinitely without defending it against the top fighters, look at what's going on right now. Canelo is going to fight that mediocre fighter called Edgar Berlanga instead of fighting Benavidez or Morrell. That shows you how corruption is ingrained in the sport of boxing. How money is the machine that works, that makes everything move in boxing. All right. So if you don't have that marketability, if you don't have that reach, that fan base like Canelo does, you know, all those brain dead people that actually follow Canelo and excuses his cherry picking constantly, those people, you know, they defend him no matter what. And you have brain dead fanboys like that in boxing for different athletes, like the Devin Haney's, like the Ryan Garcias, like the, you know, Canelo Alvarez, like the Tank Davis, and you see that all the time in boxing. So that's the reason why the organizations continue being corrupt. Hey, listen, man, no matter what, we're gonna be making a lot of money. The organization makes money. we keep this golden goose, you know, creating money, producing big fights with a lot of income. No matter what we do, these people are gonna pay for it. So they're using people, ignorant, casual people. They're using their lack of knowledge of boxing in order to line their pockets with a lot of money. And these are the organizations of boxing, and these are the boxers themselves who do not care about legacy, like Canelo Alvarez, who only care about making money. Choosing Edgar Berlanga is a disgrace, and we're going to talk about that in my next episode. All right, we'll discuss that at another time. But you already know the history of Canelo Alvarez. Got to be an asterisk next to his name. That guy, well, I'm not going to say anything else. We'll leave it for the next program. Again, on the other hand, UFC operates as a single entity, meaning it has more control over matchups and can enforce a more meritocratic system. Fighters in the UFC generally have to prove themselves against tough competition to earn a title shot, which creates a more transparent and trustworthy process for fans. Boxing also suffers from long periods of inactivity for its stars. Top boxers might fight only once or twice a year, which isn't enough to maintain fan interest. The UFC, with its regular events schedule, keeps its fighter active and its fans engaged. MMA's global appeal is another factor in its rise. The UFC has successfully tapped into international markets, hosting events worldwide and signing fighters from diverse backgrounds. This international approach has broadened the sports fan base and introduced MMA to new audiences. Boxing, while historically popular worldwide, has struggled to maintain the same level of global integration. Regional promoters and broadcasting deals have kept many top fights confined to specific markets, limiting the sport's reach. Furthermore, the variety in MMA, combining striking, grappling, and submission, offer a more dynamic and unpredictable spectacle compared to boxing's singular focus on striking. This diversity appeals to a broader audience and keeps the sport fresh and exciting. While MMA is undeniably on the rise, there's an important factor that aspiring fighters should consider: financial reward. Top elite boxers earn significantly more than their counterparts in the UFC. This is a compelling reason for someone who wishes to become a professional fighter to consider boxing over MMA. Let's take a look at some examples. Canelo Alvarez, one of the boxing's biggest stars, signed a deal with DAZN in 2018 worth $365 million for 11 fights. In 2021, he earned around $40 million for his fight against Caleb Plant. In contrast, the top earners in the UFC make considerably less. Conor McGregor, the highest paid UFC fighter, earned about $20 million for his fight against Donald "Cowboy" Cerrone in 2020. While McGregor's total earning, including endorsements, are substantial, they still fall short of the astronomical purses seen in boxing. Boxing is still king, guys. No matter what you tell me, MMA is geared to a lot of casuals, boxing connoisseurs, and boxing purists love the sport of boxing because of its history, because of the technical part also, which we haven't talked yet, but we're gonna address that in a second. The pay disparity is stark, and it extends beyond just the superstars. The average UFC fighters make significantly less per fight than the average professional boxer. This financial incentive is a major factor for athletes when deciding which sport to pursue. The structure of boxing promotions with different networks and promoters competing for top fighters creates a more lucrative market for boxers. In contrast, the UFC, as a single entity, controls fighter pay more tightly, leading to lower overall earnings for its athletes. So it's exploiting, Dana White is exploiting its fighters, and that is a fact. So we have, promoters exploiting their fighters on both sides. But, boxers get paid a lot more. So that they are exploited also, like Dana White exploits his fighters. The disparity in the income is great. There's a lot of more money to be made in boxing. And like I was saying about the technical aspect, all right, in MMA, one of the things that I've noticed is, a champion doesn't defend his title for a long time. Can't keep his title for a long time. There's always a new guy coming in and stopping them or submitting them or whatnot. All right. So if you watch boxing, you can see that a really dominant fighter, let's say Tank Davis or Wilfredo Gomez, who defended his title 17 times against top level opposition. You don't see that in MMA. All right. Why? Because boxing is like human chess. There's a lot of technique involved, which a lot of people do not understand, but it's only one technique. It's only one part of the body that is actually involved in this. I'm talking about the punches and whatnot versus, MMA, which you have to master not only the grappling, you have to master the kicks, you have to master the stand-up. All these things, come into play, and most of the fighters have more dexterity in one of these facets. Either the kicking or the grappling or jiu-jitsu or the wrestling or the stand-up boxing than others. So in boxing, it's only you got to concentrate on the technique, obviously your footwork, your defense, your athletic ability, and also the punching power. All these things combine into making you an elite fighter. And I consider boxing a more complete and a tougher sport than MMA because of that, and more complex sport than MMA. An elite fighter in boxing can beat anybody else in that weight division. An elite fighter. It's head and shoulders over everybody. And we have so many examples of Sugar Ray Robinson, and Sugar Ray Leonard, the Mano Piedra Duran. Now in modern day society, you have the Lomachenkos, you have other fighters who have dominated their divisions easily. The Naoya Inoue, that guy is a monster. These guys totally dominate their division, and they continue achieving and more belts and achieving more challenges because of that being so elite in the sport of boxing. All right. So in conclusion, while both boxing and MMA have their merits, the safety, accessibility, and competitive structure of the UFC have contributed to its growing popularity among casual fans. Boxing's higher risk of fatal injuries, fragmented landscape, and issues with corruption and inactivity have hindered its appeal. However, the financial rewards in boxing remain a significant draw for those looking to make a career in combat sports. As fans of combat sports, it's essential to appreciate the unique aspects of both disciplines. However, it's clear that the UFC's model of delivering consistent, high-quality fights between top competitors has resonated with a global audience. So guys, in a nutshell, this episode has been created just for all those MMA fans, all those boxing fans, some fans that watch MMA and boxing, and they are both great sports, great combat sports. But to be honest with you, for me, there's nothing like boxing. And the reason why is, although there is corruption since its inception, although there are multiple champions in each division, although there is so many organizations and fighters not defending their title and cherry picking, all these things, all this drama surrounding boxing, I still love to see a good fight now and then. An elite fight, a fight toe-to-toe, a fight like Tim Tszyu versus Sebastian Fundora. fights like that, historic fights like Barrera versus Morales, Wilfredo Gomez versus Lupe Pintor, like Duran versus Sugar Ray, like Hearns versus Marvin Hagler. These are historic fights, guys, that people still talk about it. And guys that even love, like Joe Rogan, that loves the UFC and is a commentator for the UFC, he loves boxing because he understands the historic significance of the sport of boxing and how it would always remain king, no matter how many black eyes it has. For me, boxing will remain king, will remain the sport that I watch in my house. When there's no boxing, I might watch 1 or 2 fights of MMA. For me, it's a boring sport. Sometimes you have good fights where there's action, but most of the time I am bored, guys, and it's just my predilection, my opinion. Everybody thinks differently, but I prefer boxing more than MMA. That's why I chose the sport. It's up to you to decide which sport you're gonna watch. If you want to learn about the sport of boxing, you gotta watch it. If you're into the sport of boxing, if you're practicing the sport of boxing, you have to watch the fights, you have to learn the history, and you have to be able to understand the roots of the sport in order to become a better fighter. Anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in to Inside the Ropes with Coach Mario. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Drop your comments below. What are your thoughts on the MMA versus boxing debate? But until next time, have a great weekend. Enjoy the fights. God bless you all, and peace.